again, Broncos country.
Really excited to chop up some Broncos with you all this week.
Bourbon, Broncos, and no BS.
Time of the week, but not for the Raiders, Chargers, or Chiefs. So grab your brews in your fantasy league. We got that blue and orange blood that you bleed. The most loyal fans there ever could be. We are that mile high Broncos country.
Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news.
What is up, Broncos country, and welcome to another week of Orange Weekly After Dark. As usual, I'm Jason, and joining me again tonight is Kevin. I put more effort into eating pumpkin pie than I saw the Broncos play the Panthers, Dan Dino. And go and start dropping your comments, questions, anything you want to talk about tonight. If you missed the game, you missed absolutely nothing. It was arguably, the more I think about it, the worst Broncos game I've watched in my memory. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say anything's worse than the dreaded Super Bowl 48, but you're right. Just the level of ineptitude we saw on the field was just outstanding, and especially from the offense. The defense, there's a discussion where the guy's tired, or they starting to just kind of lose some of that edge that they had, because again, how many times week in and week out, in fact, every single week this year up until minus a couple weeks, against the Raiders, but they've kept us in the game. And every single week, our offense hasn't done anything. The 3 wins we have were because the defense overcame the ineptitude of the offense. So, I mean, is it getting to the point where the defense and what you saw between Purcell and Wilson on the field, is that finally starting to show some cracks in division between the defense and the offense?
Yeah, it's one of those things, where we all obviously reflect back to Super Bowl 48, and the difference for me though is there's no doubt that every single player on the Broncos wanted to win that game. Right, it's a Super Bowl, right? They all wanted to win. It just obviously did not go it wasn't our night, right? But you couldn't fault that. There was never a moment came across in that game where they don't want to be out there. It felt like after the first 10 minutes of this game, it was like literally not a single player wants to be out there right now. Yeah. Not one of them wants to be out there. Zero energy. Honestly, Purcell yelling at Wilson was the one bit of energy
we saw.
And interestingly enough, what happened that next drive?
Yeah, they went out there.
We got a touchdown that next drive,
pulling teeth, but we made it happen.
But it's sad though that it took that long to see some sign of somebody caring. There were a couple standouts. You can, Purcell obviously was engaged. Hinton had a couple good plays. Outside of them,
Murray. He
but he had a couple big runs, but that was it. Right. It wasn't. He didn't have a special game.
Right.
He was out there doing his thing, but it didn't feel for me that all 3 phases just fell apart. Right. Obviously, the offense just was another week of what we saw all year long. Special teams was reminiscent of what we saw last year. And then defense, like you said, was just not getting the job done. And there's some debate as to why that might be. But yeah, there's back and forth. Like you said, they were out there on the field for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
Offense didn't help them in that regard. But again, that's no different from what we've seen the rest of the year. And so I think for me, that's why I've kind of leaned towards, more towards them starting to not, I don't want to say not try as hard, but that bite wasn't there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the time of possession was 37 minutes for Carolina compared to the 23, just under 23 for the Broncos. So, I mean, huge difference. It'd be tough for any defense to kind of go out there, especially as, worn down, banged up as the whole team is, to put out a solid effort. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about this? 46 run attempts from Carolina. I mean, they were just bowling us, especially I would think you could reach into a bag and pull out a name or position group that didn't play well. And it would all be accurate. But I think our defensive line was probably the biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, and the run defense, again, they were just getting pushed all over the place. They got no traction. I mean, it was like they were like practice dummies in the run game. And I mean, hey, did we even get any pressure on Sam Darnold when he actually did go back to pass? I mean, our pass rush was non-existent.
No. There might have been a couple times we rushed him, but definitely none in which we sacked him or really made a difference on that front.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was pretty disappointing for sure. Go ahead and be sure, guys, start posting. Oh, hey, there we go. Hey, you know what? You might be right. They practice dummies. They don't go back as far as our guys were. So point taken. Point taken. Thanks for joining us, Drake. Go ahead and start posting any other comments, questions, topics that you want to talk about. So here's where we're at 3-8. 3-8. I think the last little bit of, I don't want to say hope because it's the guy's job. Last bit of possibility of Hackett being fired in season died today. I think what we saw yesterday, between the lack of effort, it seems like he's lost the locker room a bit. If there was one final time for them to get rid of him in season, it would have been today. So I think by and far he's here for the rest of the season. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. We're out of the playoffs, obviously. What do you expect to see moving forward for the remainder of the season here?
Man, anything that shows improvement. Scoring more than what the average is, probably 15 or less at this
14 point something.
Yeah, 14 point something. So putting up 20 points a game, consecutive games. If we did that against Baltimore, that'd be great. We're the odds of us beating Baltimore. I mean, I know we did the Jaguars just did it, but I mean, that's just going to add fuel to the fire for Baltimore to go out there and be like, we're not going to lose to two terrible teams in a row, right? But if we could put 20 points up against them, wow, and if you could do that multiple times, especially multiple weeks in a row to show some consistency, that would be huge. You know, I think at this point, wins, we can say wins don't matter because we're out of the playoffs, but just period, wins don't matter in terms of what I'm looking for. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely going to move, and he's ruined this word for me, so I hate using it too, but it's going to move into an evaluation period, right? A true evaluation, not a week to week, we're going to evaluate everything type thing that we've heard all season long, but a true evaluation, right? Especially, expect to see some of our guys that are on IR or banged up, expect them to stay out a bit longer than what we might have normally seen or hoped for if we were making a playoff rush, right? And they're going to keep the young talent in, see what assets we have moving into next season, see who might be tradable, who can, maybe get an edge to make the roster for next season. So I'm going to see, I expect to see a lot of young players versus the veteran. Again, especially the guys that might be getting healthier, but they're not going to force it or rush it at this point. So It's going to be interesting. I can't fathom that Hackett is back next year. So for him, maybe it's a tryout for another team to take a chance on him. I expect him to go back to a coordinator position next year. Somebody's offensive coordinator. I can't imagine anyone taking a chance on him as a head coach for the next few years after this debacle.
Right.
Because again, he's shown absolutely zero head coach skill sets, qualities, anything like that. So, so again, we've got a few games. 6 games left? A lot of them division games. Half of them division games. 2 against the Chiefs, which Melvin Gordon I expect will be activated from the practice squad and will score 3 touchdowns on us and
not fumble at all.
Not fumble and rush for 200 yards.
Plus, even if he did fumble, our offense wouldn't do anything with it. So it's for them it'd be like, okay, go put him out there and let him score 3 touchdowns and fumble 3 times because the Broncos might get 3 points out of that. Like, okay, yeah.
So it's going to be rough. I think our most winnable game at this point is the Cardinals, and that's just because of how banged up they are. But even that, I mean, it very well could be a lose out season, which is tough. I mean, this might be honestly the worst season we've had.
Broncos history, at least since the 60s.
At least since the Shanahan era. I mean,
in the early Shanahan era. Too.
Right. Yeah. So, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the locker room stays together, if they stay together, if we see more interactions like Purcell and Wilson that we saw, or if it turns into, I expect to see a lot more business decisions being made on the field too. Right. It's unfortunate. It's how it goes, but especially defensively, don't be surprised if maybe they shy away from a big hit. Maybe we'll kind of wrap up high versus going down low or something like that. Don't be surprised. Tackles. Yeah, don't be surprised to see that at this point.
And I mean, as hurt of a team we are, as banged up of a team we are, I'm okay with that because I don't want to keep losing more people at this point to another serious injury in which we're not going to have them for the first half of next year.
Sure.
Minimum. So,
right. And especially guys on contract years too, right? They don't want to be taking risks for stupid injuries that could have been avoided for a meaningless game, right? Again, it's always different if you're, those games that are important for seeding, for playoff contention, obviously in the playoffs, like who cares, right? They're going to put their bodies on the line for that. But they're at this point in the season, especially if you're a contract year, you're not going to take those extra risks and risk being out for next season. I'm with you for the first half. We are married to Wilson. Better or worse, right? There's just no, I've seen some interesting Twitter, I don't even want to call them analytics. People trying to figure out a way to cut Wilson and make the cap work. And it was, some of their justifications was beyond hilarious. I saw one guy said if you cut these 9 players and restructure these 5 players, you can make it work. It's like, okay, well then how are we going to replace those 9 players? Exactly. Right? You gotta field a team. And then
you're totally starting from scratch again.
You can't just cut nine players, basically a fifth of your team,
right?
Just to make the cap work and expect to replace them somehow too. Right. So listen, if we cut Wilson, it's $100+ million of dead cap space, right?
And there's just
no way. And people are trying to, if you do it before June 1st versus after, you might be able to spread it between 2 seasons. It's still over $100 million in dead cap space. That's it.
And the team's not going to be able to grow. You
right.
can't build a team from the ground up when you have that much money tied up in dead cap space.
Right.
So then you're just waiting for 2 seasons to free up that money so you can. So now you're not only setting yourself a year behind from having Wilson this year, which I fully expect him to learn. And look, when the guy's been an MVP for 9 out of 10 years, I really think this is more of an anomaly year. There's a lot of bad things going on, the injuries, there's a lot of change, the head coaching, things are not jiving at all. Right. I see this more of an anomaly year. Do I think he's going to completely bounce back and be Super Bowl quarterback next year? No, but I fully expect to be better.
Oh, for sure. Right.
But to say, let's find a way to cut him now. Well, now we've lost this season. Then you've spread it over 2 seasons. Then you lost another 2 seasons.
Right.
before you can finally start building for real on the 4th year.
Right.
So you're essentially setting yourself back 4 years because that first year you're not going to,
Well, even that, good luck finding a coach willing to take that on. Good luck finding free agents that are going to want to come, at a decent price.
By the time you get to the 4th year and say we can actually start adding some people, we can.
You're still another 2-3 years behind.
Right. So at minimum 4 years behind, if not 5, 6, 7 years behind. So that's the contract time of Russell Wilson.
Right.
Why not just keep him and try to build a team around him?
Yep.
Even if it means we get coaches and stuff in here that they're not saying, here's my offensive scheme or whatever. Hey, Russ, you're going to be in charge of the offensive scheme and I'm backing you up or whatever it takes, right? Even if it's non-standard stuff like that. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Spiel over.
No, for sure. I mean, people keep in mind, the people keep saying, no, he's been on decline for 5+ years. That's not true. His last fully healthy season 2 years ago, he put up career numbers.
Yeah.
And then last year wasn't bad. He just had that finger injury that he came back probably a bit too early from, that kind of stinted his numbers a bit, but had a strong start to that season. So, everyone who's already writing out Wilson, I mean, has he been good? No. But again, has been a lot. I mean, look who's throwing to right now. Right. I mean, his weapons aren't there. He's still running a system that is Hackett's system that isn't suited for Wilson. Even with Kubiak calling plays, it's still Hackett's playbook. Right. They didn't install a new playbook within a week.
You're just getting somebody else to decide what play to call.
Exactly. Right. So, it's still Kubiak's playbook, which just doesn't go well with Wilson's capabilities. And so, it's going to take a coach who understands Wilson, knows how to work with Wilson. Let's see what we got here. We can try to salvage what we can out of the season, bring in a guy. Yes. I was hoping for Dan Quinn last year. People didn't enjoy my take because they wanted an offensive minded person. And even though I kept saying a head coach is a different skill set, people don't listen to me that much.
What'd you say?
Exactly. But and the thing with Dan Quinn is he would probably bring in Shoddy with him, the current Dallas offensive coordinator, who they both have experience working with Wilson. Right. And so, bringing in an offensive coordinator that is qualified, knows how to work with the likes of Russell Wilson, knows his strong suits, and can build an offense around the strengths instead of bringing in a system saying you're going to play to what my playbook wants you to do. Right. It's some quarterbacks are that adaptable. A lot of great quarterbacks aren't. Right. I mean, you try handing Tom Brady a playbook and say you will only call these plays. Good luck. Right. It's just not going to happen. There's system quarterbacks, there's non-system quarterbacks, and that's just the way it is. But it's going to be, look for a guy. I'm really hoping Dan Quinn is still interested. He was very interested in the Broncos last year. So much so that when we offered it to Hackett, Dan Quinn pulled his name from the head coach pool altogether and said, I'll just return to Dallas as a coordinator. So, listen, Dan Quinn is a great leader. He's been there. He's done that. He took the Falcons to a Super Bowl, and to the people who still are crying for an offensive-minded head coach, Dan Quinn knows how to hire offensive coordinators, right? If you look at the Falcons' offensive stats under Dan Quinn, they were phenomenal.
Didn't he hire Kyle Shanahan?
Weird. He has a great eye for talent, right? And that's part of a head coach skill set, right? Versus the head coach we have right now decided
everybody's new, right? We're gonna get experience for everybody.
We have nobody who has any experience, so
hey, they can't fire me if there's nobody else with experience to replace me with.
Almost like he planned it from the start. I won't go there, but so exactly like Drake said, look for a quality, head coach. Don't be surprised. Again, I don't want to hear anything about offensive minded head coach, yada yada yada. Get me a head coach who knows how to lead and manage a team, knows how to lead and manage players like Russell Wilson, all of that stuff. And hey, I think, especially if we can keep a Vero, I think there's an added benefit to, hey, our defense, your offense let you down for the past however long. Look, we're bringing a coach who understands that side of the ball too, to better support you while we assist the offense to get their crap figured out too. And I think that kind of, gives a bit of a morale boost to that defense if you kind of want to go that route. But
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll take a quick break here. If you want to go into any spiels you might want to go into.
So I love snow. Snow is awesome.
There we go.
Oh, that spiel. Yes. Okay. Well, hey guys, look, I know the Broncos are not fun, but there is still ways you can have fun with football. And one of those ways is with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They are definitely my go-to when it comes to, NFL sports betting in general, but this holiday season in general, because of the offers they have. I tell you what, I've tried different sports books before, and I'm completely serious about this. I always keep going back to DraftKings, and it's because not just the app is very user friendly, but all the different things they have, like the same game parlays, the stepped up same game parlays, the great player prop options, fast payouts. All those things just makes it so much more enjoyable, and the way they update the odds during the game, and you can track what's happening during the game and all those things, right? So tons of things you can do, and it's just so enjoyable that way. Right now, guys, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, like anybody who's playing the Broncos, and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check this out, guys. Right now, everybody, not just new customers, but everybody can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. All you need to do is go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place a same game parlay and contribute or combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, obviously the bigger boost, the bigger payout you get, and the bigger shot to win big you have. Like I said, tons of fun games still going on in the NFL. You can look to other games if you don't want to even look at the Broncos games. But I kind of already told you what my bets are going to be. But here's how you get into this, guys. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code TPPN and place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Beautiful. I'm not a let's not get carried away here. Nobody's had that much to drink tonight. I'm not a huge betting man, but the safest bets are probably the Ravens and the under for this next week. Yeah. I'm just saying it's not like our offense has been putting up a ton of points. So there we go. Great. So again, post any last comments, questions. We're going to start wrapping up here. As opposed to just saying the same storylines that we say week after week, it feels like we're just in this constant circle of repeating patterns.
If you want to hear more detail, just go back to last week's episode, and it's essentially the same.
Pretty much. that's pretty much.
And if you still want more, you can just go to the week before that, and it's the same.
Yeah. If you go back far enough, you might even run into one of our mile high salutes that we haven't been able to do in quite some time.
Is that the left hand?
It's put your gotta start with your hand up in front of your face.
All
right. So remaining schedule for the Broncos, we got Ravens, Cardinals, Chiefs twice, and Chargers. What are the odds we get one win?
Imagine you're in the Broncos stadium. We get the ball back with 2.5 minutes, down by 3, and all 3 timeouts. And you hear on the loudspeakers, "Broncos country, let's ride." What do you think your odds are of winning that game?
Am I asleep or is this actually happening?
Actually happening.
Who's calling the plays?
It doesn't. You choose.
I'm saying if they say, "Wilson, who cares? Do your own thing," I think they have a chance.
Okay, that's not happening.
I'm just saying.
So one of the coaches.
Then probably not.
Yeah, so that's the odds of us winning a game this year, the rest of the year.
It would be, if nothing else, if we could steal a game from the Chiefs.
Oh my God, can you
at least break that streak?
Especially at home on the 11th. Oh my God, the stadium would go wild.
Yeah.
Oh jeez. Again,
not holding my breath, but if there was one final win for that, you can hold your breath all night long. That's fine. If there was one redeeming game for this year. It's one of those two. The NFL does have till I think tomorrow at some point to flex that game out of prime time.
Wouldn't be surprised if they do.
I wouldn't either, but I'm surprised they've taken this long to make that decision. So again, I think there's some deadline tomorrow. Yeah. I think it's like noon or something.
I think it's still a good rivalry, and as desperate as the Broncos are to maybe, just break this cycle, it could be worth the viewership if they're seeing those numbers. In terms of it being a good game, probably not. But if they're thinking that they're going to get good enough numbers, and obviously that's what they care about. So
I got you, Austin. You're fired.
That's it.
All right, so we start.
You can't fire me from my own show.
This is my show.
My podcast.
Yeah, this is my show though. We talked about this a little bit earlier, so I won't touch too much on it. Today was basically the final chance. I will throw something at you. Moving on. Today was basically the final chance that you would see somebody getting fired. And an interesting point that I did see on Twitter, Ben Albright raised an interesting perspective, which I hadn't thought about, which was, hey, the ownership, front office people, by not firing Hackett yet, are showing to other potential coaching candidates that they don't make knee-jerk reactions, right? And so they're basically saying, well, even when things are this bad, we're not just going to toss you out just to please the fan base, right? We're going to do things the way we want to do things, no matter how loud the fan base is crying. So even if the entire fan base is screaming for your job, know that it's safe as long as we're on the same page there. And so interesting perspective.
Your fair shot.
Right. Yeah. So interesting perspective. I can kind of see that, if you think of the Browns and their whole coaching debacle that went on for years and years and years, it kind of turned to that, right? Where they were just firing coaches after, it seemed like every 6 games they were firing somebody, right? And it got to the point where no coach even wanted to put their name in the hat because, like, well, shoot, if I don't get off to a 6-0 start, I'm out. Yep. And so interesting perspective I hadn't really thought about that way before, but I could see that train of thought.
I think it makes even more sense when you're talking about firing a coach after his first year, versus somebody, it's their second or third year.
Right.
And it's still that bad, right? So, because you're already kind of setting a message if you fire somebody after the first year, but as bad as the Broncos are, especially offensively, when we hired him for his offensive genius, definitely sticking with him it does make sense.
Right. So
very well could be.
So we've got 6 games left of Hackett. I don't think there's any saving grace. And, he's just, the amount of ineptitude is just too much to even attempt a second season with him. But so 6 games with Hackett as head coach, with the same support staff as well. Hopefully they're not all still sleeping at the facility. Hopefully they've kind of figured out that, hey, that didn't work, so maybe we should have a work-life balance to some degree. See your wife and kids, something small, especially around the holiday season. I hear that's important, but something like that.
But yeah, I think even at this point, unless there's nothing we can do except for win out that would even maybe talk about us bringing him back. Right. And that'd be a maybe, because everything's been so bad at this point. And
I don't even think it's worth talking about. I mean, what are the odds that we're going to figure out our lives overnight and win 5 in a row against the schedule, especially that we have? No. Right. It's just
twice against the Chiefs.
Right. No. Chargers, Ravens. We've gotten to the point where we can't even put up 18 points, right? Where we're going in the opposite direction. And there's no way we're going to be able to keep up with these high-paced offenses that are going to put up more than 18 points against us, even with our defense. And so, at this point, I would, again, I'm not a huge betting man. I would bet a lot of money right now that Hackett is not back next year. Whether we lose out, whether we win 1 or 2 games, whatever it is, he's just instilled zero confidence that he knows how to run a program. And that's fine. That's, some people, they just aren't cut out for that. Some people need more experience, in the league, learning under somebody who can show them the ropes of that. Not everyone's made out to be a head coach. Not everyone's made out to be a coach the first time, right? And there's a lot of retreads in the NFL that are successful, right? Bill Belichick was not successful his first go around. Mm-hmm. Mike Shanahan was not successful his first go around. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of coaches that, aren't successful at first, they go back to a coordinator position, they get that second chance and something clicks. But at this point, I can't see any kind of way that he is back for another year.
Hawaii. Aloha. How you doing, Joey?
Beautiful.
Glad to see you here.
Beautiful in Hawaii.
I don't. I forget
you
she's
don't.
a singer. I don't know. Artist, whatever.
I'm
they call
talking
themselves.
about Hawaii is beautiful. Huh?
It is.
Yeah. And then you start. All right.
Question for you. So we saw how bad McDaniels was with the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
Years, with Belichick, Raiders gave him a chance, and we're seeing that he's essentially still the same. Is that going to hurt Hackett's chances in the future of getting a head coaching job again?
I don't think so. I think it comes down to the individual, right? I mean, McDaniels is a whole special case. I mean, literally only the Raiders would hire him. I mean, especially with what he pulled with the Colts a few years ago, where he accepted.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
He accepted the position and then backed out.
I forgot about that.
So he had burned a lot of bridges.
That's true.
A lot of bridges.
That's true.
I don't think anyone's going to look at McDaniels and go, "Oh, nobody's able to be a coach the second time."
Right. I was just talking about like the length in between.
Right. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, personally, from what I've seen from Hackett, I don't think he's cut off to be a head coach.
Right.
He just doesn't know how to run a locker room as a head coach. And again, it's a totally separate skill set from a coordinator, and he just doesn't seem to get it. He doesn't know how to. I mean, we've talked about the culture part before, and how he's addressed Raiders games and the response he's had to those, and I just don't think he gets that role, which is fine. Some people just don't get it. That's there's nothing wrong with that. But that being said, hey, 5 years from now, whatever, if he decides to go for it again, if he feels like he does understand that role, some team might give him a chance and, might have turned things around.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you're not going to bench a player who's making that much money, no matter how your season's going.
Yeah.
To be fair, I wish I was under those circumstances myself, that I was getting paid so much that I was forced to work no matter how bad I was. Just subscribe to our podcast channel.
Dude, awesome. Appreciate it, Austin.
We got a lot of great stuff. We'll get to all the great stuff we have coming your way here in a moment. Easy. No, I think there could easily be a turnaround next year. Semi rebuild. I could see a semi rebuild, maybe another 1 or 2 years.
This was never going to be we got Russell Wilson. We're going to the Super Bowl this year. So don't do that, Joey.
I got nothing. You have to deal with this guy now. Anyways,
I'm going to scold you.
We're going back to the
I'm going to scold you. Austin, you make me happy. What's up, dude? Glad you're here, man.
We got a lot of stuff coming your way throughout the week. Even though the Broncos season is probably going to continue to go downhill, we will continue to go uphill with our content. So things that come at you on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. So obviously Monday night, we're doing this show now. Don't forget our main show, Tuesday night, Bourbon Broncos, no BS, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Game days, we got the pregame show, the halftime show, and then the pregame and postgame podcast as well. So, guys, you just being here and watching the shows and commenting and stuff is a huge support for us. We're going to keep doing this year in and year out as long as you all keep coming back. But if you want to help us out in another way as well, going out to these podcast platforms, giving us a 5-star review definitely helps us out a lot. It gets us more visibility, more credibility, all those things. And so doing that 2-3 minutes, guys, it definitely helps. But make sure you check out all that content. And we are getting close to that time of year to start really promoting our fan appreciation episode we do every year in January. We're going to be giving away prizes. It's just going to be us hanging out with y'all, having some fun doing some fun games, Broncos related stuff or whatnot, and just enjoying the fact that we're all Broncos fans and hang out together, and us thanking you for supporting us. So make sure you watch out for more information on that. Definitely a fun time. We've done it the last couple of years, and it's just a blast. So I'm glad to do it. But there you go, guys. That's all the stuff for you. And we'll see you tomorrow night. But otherwise, back to you, man.
Yeah. Let's see here. Beautiful. There we go. I was also wrong. There is somebody who has drank enough where they might think that you're beautiful.
Am I beautiful, Joey? If you here, you can redeem yourself here.
We'll see.
This is where we're at with the Broncos right now. Is we're having these types of conversations on air.
It's nauseating.
That's where we're at.
I'm looking at your face. It's
that too.
Yeah.
No.
As a response to that, top coaches take over the Broncos. I'd like to see the pool still. Dan Quinn's still my number one. He's absolutely my number one. So I know there's some exciting names coming out. I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head right now, but whether, the other thing is who's going to be interested in the Broncos role too, right? I do think Dan Quinn hopefully we didn't burn that bridge because he was so interested last year and we turned him down. Hopefully he's willing to, in a kind of chip on your shoulder, say you should have hired me the first time around, so I'll come in and show that, that type of thing. So we'll have to see. But Sean Payne is not going to happen because we would have to trade for him. We don't have that much trade capital to begin with. And, like I just mentioned, there's been zero indication Sean Payton wants to come to the Broncos, right? I think last I checked, he listed Cardinals and Rams as possible destinations he would want to go to. But there's been zero mention of Payton's interest to Denver. And so we're not going to trade for somebody who doesn't want to come coach for us in the first place.
How would you feel if one day somebody at work was like, hey, we've traded you and you're going to go do this job, even though it's a job that you don't want? How excited about that would you be?
Yeah. Especially when you have the right to say, I'm just not going to show up. Yeah. Sean Payton is not going to be a candidate for the Broncos. And finally, yes, we're just going to start talking about drafts in coming weeks here. First round. Here's the thing. I don't know. It very well might be best player available because we are needy at pretty much every position. And so whoever is best available, I would think at that point in the draft too, it's probably going to be a later first round pick, the way it's starting to shape out. But this is also not going to happen. Baggage of CU days. He clearly just doesn't interview well too. I mean, he's been interviewed every single cycle for how long now, and nobody gives him a chance. Something goes wrong in his interviews where I'm not in there, so I don't know, but there's a pattern, right?
There's a reason.
When you're given 5 interviews a year and nobody takes you up on it, you're doing something wrong, right? Yeah. And then correct his baggage at the C days, both within the law, but also just how terrible he was as a coach for CU. I mean, they were absolutely arguably worse than they are right now, which is saying terrible. Something. I don't see him as an option either. Maybe somebody will finally take a chance on him. But I think a lot of people see that he doesn't contribute that much to the Chiefs, right? I mean, he's the offensive coordinator, but let's be real, that's Mahomes and Andy Reid, right? He's just kind of there. and so I don't see that as an option either. Again, my hope is Dan Quinn. Notice how Joey didn't answer our question.
I wasn't going to bring that back up. Joey's ignoring me, and now I'm judging him even more.
I think he's, sometimes silence is the answer. Maybe we should just draft everyone. I like that approach. We're just going to draft every single person.
All of them. And throw it all against the wall and see what sticks.
I wonder if anyone's tried that before. If they go with our selection, with our first selection, we draft everyone available.
All of them. Does it say that you can't?
These are all us. These you're all now Denver Broncos.
We want all of these.
It is going to be.
Everyone else can pick among the rest.
It's going to be the most amazing training camp preseason to see who makes the final cuts. It'll be like Gladiator out there.
Oh yeah. What was the question?
If in you mentioned earlier that you said you're hammered.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So the question was, are you hammered enough to actually think that he's beautiful?
Handsome. We'll go with handsome.
I think either one is a drastic stretch, but we'll see if he answers or not. We're kind of running out of time here, so we're going to give our final thoughts, and hopefully Joey's answered the question this time around. But who would blame him if he didn't? So final thoughts. Here we are, Broncos situation facing the Ravens. Brutal game against the Panthers.
Yeah, I saw that. Jeez.
Yeah, that's the answer I would give too, Joey. Just divert.
Suddenly, Joey's like, "Why am I blocked from Orange Weekly?"
Hey, Joey. You are always welcome on my show. This has been great. I haven't had to put nearly as much effort at throwing crap at him because you've been helping me along the way. So it's been great. So final thoughts, go.
So yeah, here we are, guys. We're here, and this place that we're at is just that's what we're dealing with here in this spot, and it sucks. How else do you say this, guys? Like, it's just so bad. Like, it's beyond words. And so, what do we look for at this point? What is forfeit to save embarrassment? Yeah. Like Jason said, look into those younger players, seeing what they do, what can Hinton do. And we're already seeing how well he's playing for what was expected of him. Right. So, continuing to see, can he continue to grow and play well? And what do these other guys do? And can we find some sort of improvement, versus this regression? Is there, are we getting 20 points a game for multiple weeks in a row? Are we seriously not getting as many penalties every single week? Beyond that, like, the play calling is going to be the play calling, and it sucks. We're beat up beyond all repair, and it sucks. And we just have to ride out, no pun intended, this storm of crap that we have to sit through. So look, there's always next year. We're stuck. Whatever you guys see of him as, we're stuck with what Russell Wilson. I have not lost any faith in him. I still think he has a ton left. I'm not looking at the comments. I'm ready to see this. There you go. Yeah, I almost wore an Avs hat tonight just because.
Got to have some representation of winners
like
in the
slowly,
show.
The stuff in the background slowly starts turning Avalanche, and then before you know it, this is now the Blue and Burgundy Weekly After Dark show. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking for, man. Is just, let's see some improvement, because Hackett's not going to be here next year. So can Russ continue to build some continuity with these players?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, at least they're winning, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining in with us, Joey, and everyone else too. Who's posted comments and watched this tonight. Yeah, I agree. Hey, at the end of the day, we got 6 Broncos games left of the season, and then we don't get to watch them play a game until next August. So hey, it might be terrible football, but hey, enjoy it for what it's worth. For what it's worth, get people beating the crap out of each other for cheap entertainment. Yep. So if nothing else, you got that, and then once the Broncos are over, you can tune into the Avalanche and they're winning games. So, hey, take it for what it's worth. Again, it is what it is at this point. Just don't, we advise against concussions, especially intentional concussions.
Please don't.
If there were a spotter, they would have to remove you and give you a full concussion evaluation. So careful what you do while watching the game too, to make sure that you're not hurting yourself. Even though sometimes that is
less painful.
Yes. So with that being said, guys, thanks again for joining us tonight. Hope to see you throughout the rest of this week and during our weekly show next Monday as well, win or lose. So as always, we will finish with a good old go Broncos.
Take care, everyone.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sip and go, sip is right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, yeah, they know I'm a pro.